Hello, welcome. Today we're playing
Dear Esther.
A game that is effectively a walking simulator with a really good story.
Dear Esther. The morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
This game is set on one of the islands in the Hebrides, and it's a very story-based game. Like, this is literally the only controls I have. I can WASD around, I can zoom with right mouse or left mouse. They both do exactly the same, and that's it. But this is all built in the Source engine as well. Same engine that Half-Life 2 was built in. I think it's the same generation of Source engine as well, which is why the controls are actually quite nice. And that engine does make a nice walking simulator to try and skirt around it. Yay, we did it. It's the most exciting this game gets.
Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
Come on. Yep, I thought it might kick me off. Can I go out to sea?
Come back.
Okay, that is freaking cool. I mean, it's creepy as hell, but it's cool.
At night, you can see the lights sometimes from a passing tanker or trawler. From up on the cliffs, they are mundane. But down here, they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions, whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel.
So far we know that there was a hermit who rode here in a boat with no bottom to be at one with the creatures of the sea.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact, when we were torn loose from our moorings, and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders? Did it first break surface then?
So we also know that there were shepherds on the island.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid, or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
What this game feels like a lot of the time to me is as if I'm reading a novel. That's how it feels. It feels like I'm reading a novel that's been written in the memoirs.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
It feels like more like an interactive novel, and the fact that I've played it multiple times and I don't like walking simulators, which is just testament to how well written it is.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I threw my arms wide and the cliff opened out before me, making this rough home. I transferred my belongings from the bothy on the mount and tried to live here instead. It was cold at night, and the sea lapped at the entrance at high tide. To climb the peak, I must first venture even deeper into the veins of the island, where the signals are blocked altogether. Only then will I understand them, when I stand on the summit and they flow into me, uncorrupted.
We have just done a loop. I'm fairly sure we're meant to. Strange because you don't even see this path until you've been round.
I dreamt I stood in the centre of the sun, and the solar radiation cooked my heart from the inside. My teeth will curl and my fingernails fall off into my pockets like loose change. If I could stomach, I'd eat, but all I seem capable of is salt water. Were the livestock still here, I could turn feral and gorge. I'm as emaciated as a body on a slab, opened up for a premature source of death. I've rowed to this island in a heart without a bottom, all the bacteria of my gut rising up to sing to me. Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times, but although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome break services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
See, little references like that as well are really good. So, travelling in Britain on the motorways through the 90s, Welcome Break was one of the massive service stations that was on pretty much every motorway. It was usually every other service station. In your head, you just sort of click back and like, hey, I've passed services like that. I've passed the Welcome Break on the M5.
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital after the operation, when I was still half submerged in anaesthetic. Your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
I do love the modelling as well that went into this game, of like the shipwreck and things like that. There's a lot of work been put in.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Look at the edge of the screen. There's nothing on the cliff, yeah? It's little things like that. So just out of the corner of your eye, you catch it, and you look, and it's gone, and then it's back. This is why I love this game. I'm wondering how close we can get before it disappears altogether. I'm afraid to let it off the screen though. I feel like that might be the catalyst for it to despawn. Because obviously at this point you're running up and you're looking at the entity as you run up. So you're looking forwards as you're running up. You're not looking sideways, so it's not visible. So you see it out the corner of your eye, you run up here, and it's not there.
It's only at night that this place makes any sluggish effort at life. You can see the buoy and the aerial. I've been taking to sleeping through the day in an attempt to resurrect myself. I can feel the last days drawing upon me. There's little point now in continuation. There must be something new to find here, some nook or some cranny that offers a perspective worth clinging to. I've burnt my bridges. I've sunk my boats and watched them go to water. What charnel house lies at the foot of this abyss? How many dead shepherds could fill this hole?
I love that wind whistling through it. I would love to see this game with ray tracing and new graphics.
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
This piece of the score always reminds me of Fallout. Is it? Or is it just dirt? Was that there a minute ago?
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s.
It's got to be dirt.
By then, shepherding had formalised into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobson, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him, either.
It was stood here, then it came in the house.
Inventory. A trestle table we spread wallpaper on in our first home. A folding chair. I laughed at you for bringing camping in the lakes. I was uncomfortable later and you laughed then. This diary, the bed with the broken springs. Once asleep you have to remember not to dream. A change of clothes, Donnelly's book, stolen from Edinburgh Library on the way here. I will burn them all on the last morning and make an aerial of my own.
Fucking hell. There's a light.
In a footnote, the editor comments that at this point, Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system like a drunk driver. He's not to be trusted. Many of his claims are unsubstantiated, and although he does paint a colourful picture, much of what he says may have been derived directly from his fever. But I've been here, and I know, as Donnelly did, that this place is always half imagined. Even the rocks and caves will shimmer and blur with the right eyes. They found Jakobson in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness. Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves. Winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Imagine I can't go up, can I?
From here, this last time, I have understood there is no turning back. The torch is failing along with my resolve. And hear the singing of the sea creatures from the passages above me, and they are promising the return of the gulls.
That right there is actually one of my favourite shots. If you have a spare couple of hours in your day and you don't know what to do and you want to read a book but you can't be bothered reading a book and you know a book's going to take too long, £8 on Steam, Dear Esther Landmark Edition. Take your time and explore it, because what you saw there was me basically rushing around where we didn't take all of the side paths and explore all of the little nooks and crannies, because there are a lot of them, but it's definitely worth investing in, and you will play it over and over. And there's also a director's commentary as well. And also, if you want to see me do more, just let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like, get subscribed, and click on the bell icon. We are live on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 4 PM UK time. New videos go up on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday and Friday as well. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. The Discord server's up, you should definitely come and join us on that. And yeah, that's going to do it. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for joining, and I will see you in a bit. Goodbye.